God bless, and we miss Jan, but so glad that she's in the loving Savior's arms.
Hi, amen. How are you?
Well, I'm doing great.
You got a word for Jan?
Well, I think coming to a funeral.
The family? Okay.
I think coming to a funeral, I think is greater than going dancing, because here we can dance with the Lord, and we can dance with Jan, and I'm happy for her that now she's face to face with our Lord.
Amen. Thank you very much. You got a word for the family? Yeah. You got a word for the family?
Yeah, got a word for the family. Yeah, God bless Dick and the kids.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Take good care of yourself.
They want
I love
to have
you so much. Thank you for your beautiful smile and always making me laugh. And I always remember your Facebook postings when the Giants were playing. Love you all.
Thank you. Thank you, Elena.
Love you all. I don't know what else to say. I think I cried it all out.
All right, you cried it out. Thank you very much.
Okay. Welcome to heaven.
Oh, there you go.
There you go.
Good. You got a word for the family there, young man?
I'm glad that you can remain so cheerful during tough times. It's very inspirational.
Thank you.
It was a great service, and I loved every single song, and I cried through every one as I was singing.
Okay, good.
Right there.
You have a word for the family?
Oh, our hearts and our prayers are with them.
All right, Maxine, you got a word for the family?
Bless them, and we'll just hang in with all of us together.
Thank you. Word for the family there, young lady? You got a word for the family?
Just that I miss Jan. Just love her sense of humor. She's just such an amazing, wonderful lady. She could laugh at herself, and that's wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you. Got a word for the family?
We miss Jan very much. I worked with her at RCO, and she was just a pleasure to be around, and she's going to be very missed.
Good. Thank you. Got a word for the family?
When Jan left APLAC, I got to take her job, and then when I left APLAC, she took my job back, and I was so happy to know that it stayed in the family. And
good. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse me, you ladies, do you have a word for the family? You have a word for the family? You have a word for the family?
We just miss Jan so much. She was wonderful, and we love you guys.
Thank you.
Yes, we do miss Jan.
All right, thank you.
I think it's been a little bit more since.
I want to come when it looks like in that picture.
I just started like a month ago.
God bless him. Thank you very much. Word very much. Family. You have a word for the family?
That we love Jan, and she was special. Miss Jan singing all the wrong words.
One in a million, Jan.
Yeah.
This is good. The family wants it. Dick wants this on YouTube. So he wants a word for the family.
Jan, we miss you.
Dick. Love you.
Thank you very much.
You're in the best place ever.
Keep kicking butt.
We love you.
Very good. Thank you.
So, I just want you to know Janice was the very first person I met when I moved to Foster City, and so that will always be a very, very special memory to me. And I know I want to extend my love for my daughter Jennifer, and she thought of Janice as a second mom.
Very good. Thank you. You have a word for the family?
Much love and happiness. Thinking of you often.
Good love. Janice is one of the moms on the block, so she helped raise us all.
All right. Word for the family?
Yeah, Janice was my soccer coach with my dad.
Coach.
With my dad, yeah, back in the day. So
wow,
we spent a lot of time together. So.
Wow. Word for the family?
Dick, Derek, and
Megan. If you guys need anything, just come across the street. You know where to get us.
All right. And what you did in our life through her. And we praise you in Jesus' name. Amen. Well, maybe we start off by singing Happy Birthday to Jan.
But he's not here.
Do you want to start it? Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Jan. Happy birthday to you.
And many more. I know it's
even more because it's 63 years, not 53.
I counted wrong. 63 years. Actually, look me more now. Well, to get things started just with our sharing, Dick has got some stuff he wants to share with you, and then I think we'll have Megan come up after that, not to put you on the spot. And then we'll open it up for different people who want to share. If you're allowed, you can share from your seat. Otherwise, we invite you.
Actually, we want to leave it on recording.
Okay, so we want to record this, so come on up here and share that. So let's welcome Dick.
Thanks everybody really for coming, and you would have bugged out too, and you stayed. I appreciate that. I'm trying to think. So what I need you to do is kind of help me judge the pace of it, because I don't want to talk too long, because I can talk forever about Jan. And what we're doing is recording all of this, because it's going to go on the website. You know Jan and everything she did and place she went. She had it up on Facebook. And I even found out about some of the places I visited on vacation by people telling me about Facebook. So it's really important that we get your memories recorded on this too. And if you don't feel like getting up and sharing from everybody, afterwards we do the public share. On the side we'll take recordings to get people. And if there's people that aren't here that want to share that way too, if we can get their recordings, so we can put it all together and get it on the web. Her family's back east on the East Coast, Boston area, and obviously they couldn't be here, but that's one way that we can share her with them, because they've never seen that part of her life. Some of you already know how much music was a part of Jan's life, even when she was young. I don't know how many know. She was actually a groupie. One of those that followed the bands around the Boston area, and they had a lot of bands coming through there. And she actually knew and was talking about some of the members of the Sha-Na-Na band. I mean, so she was really into it. And we were looking for music for her, and she was into Kenny G and Yanni, yes, Yanni, the Sting. And it was interesting because we were looking for music to include in this program. And for the last 5 years, the only music that we found any place in her visor, in the car, and in the CD player was all practice music, the choir. So that was just so much a part of her life, and those were the songs she loved the most. And I want to commend the choir for getting through it the way you did. It was awesome. So thank you very much. That was so neat. Okay, I want to give you time to talk to, and I'm just to go through a lot of parts of her life, but what I find interesting and what I've been going through the last month really is really looking at her life and my life, and what I found amazing that I want to share with you. And as I'm sharing, I'd like you to look at people in your life, because when I first met her, she was a New Englander. It was yes, no. She didn't talk much. She didn't share. And that's not her anymore. And also, because I was her boss for a while, and she couldn't stand working for me. But fortunately, that's another story. But fortunately, we both enjoyed seeing sights in California. So we hung out together with her girlfriend that came out, the Sue Sutcliffe that you saw in there. That was her roommate that actually came out. And we just went around sites in California. And I got to know her as a friend and just having a lot of fun. And it wasn't, I don't know, a couple of years, whatever time went by, and I thought, wow, she would make a perfect mother. Just, in terms of relationship, just she was so concerned about people. I knew she'd be a great mother. And I had been married before with a really bad relationship, so I had no intentions of ever getting married. That I wasn't sure that was right for me. Being burned once, I didn't want to get burned again. And just being with her was enough to convict me, and we said I do. So that was just, about her and her relationship, it just was so, I don't know, so impactful. I don't consider myself that much of a relationship person. And what relationship work goes through me is through the Lord, because I'm certainly not very good at it. But it brings me through. Another part of her was she had an uncanny ability to cut through all the crap and all the fluff and get right to the essence of whatever she was dealing with. And she was so efficient with her time. Like it's been said, she didn't mince words, she just told it straight. Right from her heart. She was concerned sometimes that would get her in trouble, but that didn't bother her. Just telling it straight. And in the relationships, I think that she had an uncanny sense of both knowing that people needed her and she needed them, and they really connected. And there's other people that she didn't develop that deeper relationship with. Well, I want to tell you, feel honored, because my sense is she thought that you were okay, you were great. And since she was so direct and so efficient, she just spent her time with certain people and not others. Not because she didn't like them or because of anything else. It's just the way she was. She was just so focused. And going through our early marriage, and not just so long ago, I always got frustrated because I'm a planner. I like to plan things out and think things through and really have it all straightened out. And that's definitely not her style. So she'd blow me off whenever I tried to talk to her about getting her input on planning. And what I learned was I would do my planning, and then just before I executed, I would talk to her. And as long as it was happening within the next 24 to 48 hours, she would get in there and she would make her contribution, and it was just so awesome in doing that. And I now appreciate that in her, and for years I just thought that was a cross I had to bear. She didn't have time for it. But that wasn't it at all. And what I'd like to have you guys look at too is there's people in your lives, people in all of our lives. Don't wait till they're gone to look at it, but really take the time to look at the people in your lives that you're with today. And maybe see them in a different perspective, see them as other people see them, or some of those traits you don't like. Look at the other side, maybe the flip side. They're just awesome, like Jan was. So I could go on, but I really want to hear what you guys have to say too. And if there's time in the end, I can carry on with some more stuff. So next, I'd like Megan to come up and share with her, and then get you guys going. Thanks.
Hopefully I can get through this, so bear with me.
My first memory of Mom when I was probably about 3 or 4 years old. In my artistic brilliance of that age, I'd drawn on the wall of my room with some crayons. Yes, I was one of those. And I discovered, not so brilliant and cool to do. But being the awesome mom that she is, we had lunch at McDonald's, which was a treat back then, before going back and cleaning up the mess. If she were here, she would probably tell you that is not how it went down. But at least that's the memory I have, whether it's right or wrong. I didn't perceive it growing up, but she was apparently a very fair parent. I can remember going to her crying, saying something to the effect that, you treat Eric better, you favor Eric better than me. One of the times she turned to me and said, Eric says the same thing, so I must be doing something right. She always had her best interest in heart in what she did, from being staff or volunteer staff at Foster City Elementary School and bringing the occasional Subway lunch, to coaching my soccer teams for 12 years. And she had such a big impact even at Foster City School that when I was going to Sweden, happened to be traveling in Scotland, and I actually came across somebody who remembered my mom from the schoolyard. She was in Eric's class, but she had to come up to me and say, "Oh my gosh, I remember your mom," and kind of Eric, I guess. But definitely had to say something. She loved my mom and I remembered her. And it was just funny how you run into people in the strangest places. When going out with friends, she usually slipped me an extra 20 or 2, usually behind Dad's back, to make sure I had enough cash on hand so I could definitely have fun with my friends and not worry about anything. As I grew up, Mom and I remained close, not so much in activities that we did, but we definitely talked a lot. When I was in Sweden, we talked every Saturday, unless I was in another country where I had no cell service. But otherwise, I was on the computer via instant messenger. Even in school or work, we were constantly on instant messenger. It might be a sentence for the day, or we'd have a whole conversation that we probably shouldn't be having. In fact, she was so used to me talking to her via the computer for a time there that when I visited home, I had my computer set up downstairs and came upstairs to talk to her, and she's like, "No, go away." She actually kind of yelled at me. She's like, "Go downstairs on your computer and talk to me." Yeah, she's definitely a character in that respect. And she couldn't wait till either of us kids could drink. The funny thing is, when we turned 21, neither of us really had a taste for alcohol at the time. So, she was bummed. It took a couple of years before she heard the words, "I need a drink," come from my mouth, and she was going, "All right, now I'm a proud parent. Yes, let's go get you that drink." Of course, by this time, her tolerance for alcohol was slipping. About the time I would have my wine drinking buddy, it gave her headaches, and so just the timing. I'll never forget her favorite wine is Behringer's White Zinfandel. Always sat in the box with the little cooler spout. I always thought it was disgusting, but she loved it. So. Probably why I don't drink it now. If I ever had a bad day, she'd be there to comfort me, telling me I had X amount of time to get over something before she'd come and smack me and say, "All right, you need to get over it." Not allowed to dwell. She really did tell it like she saw it, and her life lessons were like that. Such as the "do as I say, not as I do," as she's cutting across several lanes of traffic to get to the exit. Only done that a couple times. But I now have a vested guardian angel. You may have heard the saying, don't drive faster than your angel can fly. I don't have to worry about that. I'm on a left foot. I'm sure it's me catching up to her. In fact, the Subaru was named Mr. Toad after Mr. Toad's Wild Ride in Disneyland by several of her coworkers. I'm sure she'll still be teaching me lessons or giving me comfort when life gets hard. But I know she's where she wants to be. My first few dreams of her, she had the biggest smile on her face. Just to say, you know, everything's okay. You know, I'm where I want to be. The day after she passed, I was blessed to get a hug and kiss from her. I was driving with my friends to the mall and, you know, just kind of zoning out, thinking on things, and I smelled her chemo breath. And any of you who been through somebody who's sick and she's getting a lot of medication, their breath takes on a very distinct smell. So it was like I smelled that, and I got a brush on, you know, her arms and my cheek, and it was just, you know, another sign to say, I'm all right. You're going to be all right. And she is. I'm sure she's in Hawaii right now. She's not listening. So, thank you very much.
All right, who's going to be next? Let's get this ball rolling. Need a volunteer. Brenda? Okay, after Linda, then Arturo.
But I think the testament to the type of friend and neighbor that Janice Larsen was is sitting over here at this table. Betsy, Dale, Jeannie, all of us from Sea Colony who knew Janice for as long as we did. 25 years plus for me. She was like a sister. I lived right across the street. We went on vacations together. Yosemite, you saw that picture when we were all young. We're still young. Jan, I always teased her that she was a year younger than I. We're kind of like sisters because I'm West Coast, she was East Coast, yet she liked the 49ers, so she was accepted in my family. To tell you the type of friend she was, I belonged to a card group, and one of the gals couldn't make it, and they had to be even numbers, and I had to teach her the game of Pedro in about 2.5 hours, and she was there, and she actually did a great job. But Janice was an excellent friend. She could sense if you were down. She celebrated when you were up. And when the kids were growing up, we had a great time sitting by the pool, either playing cards or we played Scrabble a lot. It's true, she didn't say a whole lot, but she didn't have to. She was direct, and you knew that you could get an honest answer. If I needed something, she was always there. It didn't matter what time of day. We went through good times, bad times. We shared a lot. I am going to miss her. This was a shock to all of us. My entire family is thinking of her right now. And I was glad to... I didn't say goodbye to her before Christmas. I said, thank you. Thank you for all you've done. We shared so much. But I'm also going to say to you also, God has always been with Janice, if you've ever driven with her. I'm going to end this on a lighter note because I think Jeannie will remember this too. We were in Lake Tahoe, all of us together, and we were going hiking. If you can just envision Highway 50, going up Highway 50 and passing a car in a van that doesn't have any guts to it. And we all held our breath. And I think Jeannie held her breath because she was in the car ahead of us with all of our children. Lots of fond memories that I couldn't encapsulate in a short time. You'd need to put more tape in that camera. because I have a lot to say about Janice Larsen, but I think the best thing I could say is Webster's dictionary needs to change, because when you see the definition of friend, we need to add Janice Larsen to it. Thank you.
I got pulled over yesterday. And now that I hear, from what I hear, I think it was her behind that wheel. I've had a bad reputation of having excellent driving skills, so the cop had to stop to give me an excellent driving commendation. But to be honest with you, I met Jan the first day when she started at Stanford, and we trained each other. I had no idea what I was doing, neither did she. So I was filling that position, and she came in, and we both helped each other, and that was the relationship for the whole time that I was there working with her. There wasn't any other person that could just say, "What's wrong?" "Nothing." "I know something's wrong. Walk it off." It's gonna get better. And if anybody has watched NCIS, she would be my Leroy Jethro Gibbs. So, the compassionate person that would tell you everything with a look or a smile or a little, tap in the back to help your mind get ready. As the sermon was going on, I wrote something for her. And I'll finish it off by saying this. We live to love as we love to live. Live in our joy of that which makes us real, makes us feel, only to learn the dimensions of our love. A mystery only to be explored, and boy was she an explorer. No rock unturned, no one left behind, and no catcher in the way of her home run. Thank you.
I would like to say a few things. My name is Jeannie Beck, and I moved from Denver to Foster City back in 1985, and I remember it being a very traumatic time for me because I had given up a teaching job in Colorado, and I was moving to follow my husband's dream, and I was sitting at the Sandbox with my daughter Jennifer, and the Sandbox was right across the street from the Larsen's home, and sitting there kind of feeling a little sorry for myself, feeling a little alone, and all of a sudden Janice came down, and she just said, "Hi, what you doing?" And I said, "Well, I just moved here," and so we got started talking, and Megan and my daughter Jennifer are the same age, and so from there was these play dates that they started doing. My daughter Jennifer was the token Beck in one of the slides that they talked about. But Janice was also the person that got my daughter started in gymnastics. So one day she calls me up and she goes, "Hey, I was thinking about taking Megan to this Munchkin program or something like that. And, do you suppose Jennifer would want to go?" And so I signed her up, and I don't know, Megan, how long you were at it. It wasn't for that long of a time, but 10 years later, my daughter was still doing it, and it kind of started for her with gymnastics injury, the path that she's on right now, and she's an orthopedic surgeon who's going to specialize in pediatric sports. And so, I feel like Janice had something to do with that, because she opened a door that I probably would not have opened for my daughter. But as our children get older, so often parents kind of lose touch of the parents of their children's friends. And so, Megan went to Sonoma State, and Jennifer was at UCLA, and Janice and I just wouldn't see each other as often because our children weren't seeing each other as often. But there was one day the lights went out in Foster City, and whatever it was, we had no electricity, and my husband traveled a lot. Our children were not at home any longer, and my husband traveled a lot, and he was not home. Dick, I don't remember where you were, but you were in your home. And so, and I had not talked to Janice for a long time. And then all of a sudden the phone rings. Thank God for cell phones, or else we wouldn't have been able to get this phone call. And she goes, "Hey, what you doing?" And I really hadn't talked with her for a while, and she goes, "Well, the lights are out in my house. Are the lights out at your house?" "Yeah." And so, she just walked over like it had been yesterday or that morning that we had seen each other, and we lit a candle, and there was always a lot of wine in our house. But I have to tell you, it was not white Zinfandel. So we managed, and we just talked for hours as if it had just been yesterday. And I know that will always be a very special memory for me, and I wanted to share that with you and with all of you. Thank you.
I had the privilege of working with Jan for the last 5 years, and I would always have a jug of red wines. Red vines. Red vines.
Yeah, we got it. Yeah, right.
In my office. And every day Jan would come, sometimes once, sometimes 5, 6 times, and grab some licorice from my office. And she would often stop by and she would kind of rag on me and say, "They're stale. What are you doing? We need some fresh ones." And I would say, "Well, if you finish what's in there, I'll buy some more." You know, so we kind of had this dialogue. So I thought in her honor, I was going to open up a fresh red vines and have all of you have some today. So I'll put it by the cake. Thank you.
I've been at this church for about 31 years, so I've known Janice. I'm sorry, I'm nervous. I've known Janice for as long as she's been here. And it was just like within the last year that we started getting close, and I miss her. But what I appreciated about Jan is what I call the duality of her. She was a God-loving woman, but she was also real with the wine and the cards and the speeding and making you take right after her. You didn't follow that. Do as I say, not as I do, because you're doing as she did. So anyway, that's what I really appreciated about her was, like I said, she can be so real and so, this is a compliment, so ordinary in her demeanor, and I felt so comfortable with her because I didn't have to put on airs with her. I could be real, I could be messy, I could hurt, I could cry, and she'd be right there with me the whole time. And then on Sunday morning we'd be worshiping together, and she'd be that part of her. And I don't know what else I want to say about it. It was just that I appreciated the whole package. She was a special package. And I love her.
My name is Mandy Larsen. I'm the other Larsen, as many of the neighbors and friends have known. Megan and I were always thought to be the sisters, even though I actually have a twin brother. Okay. I have known Megan since we were about 6 years old. We met in Daisies. Janice was also my soccer coach for, I think most of my soccer career. She was always there for us. I don't know how many sleepovers we had. She was kind of a second mom to me as well. Like everybody says, like you could go to Janice and be like, "Okay, I need help. I've asked my mom and I still don't know what to do." And so Janice would kind of help you figure out something if you still didn't know what you want to do or how you want to deal with it. She would help you with boy questions if you were too afraid to ask your mom. So she was always there for me. I know there's a couple other people here, Carrie and Jenny, who were also dealt with soccer with her and stuff like that. She was always there for us. Jenny, we had many sleepovers as well with you too. So there were always lots of good times with Janice and just lots of very fond memories. So.
Hi, my name is Berta Andrews. My son is Doug, the choir director and music minister of this church. And the first time we met Jan was when she joined the church and the choir as a result. Jan loved to sing. She loved the music, as you all know and heard. She was an alto. And we were sopranos, and that was kind of the way it was, and we loved it. And they dubbed themselves the Altoids, actually, and they were proud of it, and it was just a fun thing that we played with a lot. I was privileged to go on a choir retreat with with Jan into San Mateo County in the Redwoods at the Redwood Inn. It was a wonderful place, a beautiful place where we just were close as brothers and sisters in Christ and just shared our love for each other and how the Lord, moves in our lives with campfire and marshmallows and s'mores and just walking in the beautiful redwoods. It was just a wonderful time, and we would group off and all of us share our lives with each other. And I just remember her sharing so much about her love for her family and her children, and the same for me, for my son, and how the Lord's moved in his life and what he's done. And when the diagnosis came, it hit our family really hard, because our son, some years ago, 2001, donated his liver to a friend, and it saved the friend's life. And so we knew about livers, and we knew about liver cancer, and with it being there with her liver, we just had that really sinking feeling. But we knew that she was a Christian. We knew that she was going to be, get through it with God's help, and she was so strong that way, and just such an inspiration for all of us. Love her for that. So I wrote this poem for her. On this very special day, you're always on our mind. Just as the day you went away, we have emotions of every kind. We're gathered here today, and we know that you can see. We're smiling and celebrating just as you would want it to be. So, dear Jan, please look down. Look and see how we have done. We're sending happy birthday cheers and hoping you're having fun. In my heart, you're still here, making me laugh. She always made me laugh, and sweetly calming my fears. She did that for me. From this earth you may be gone, but in my heart you still belong. He put his arms around you and lifted you to rest. God's choir must be beautiful. He always takes the best. He saw the road was getting rough, and the hills were hard to climb. So he closed your weary eyelids and whispered, "Peace be thine." It broke our hearts to lose you, but you didn't go alone, for part of us went with you the day our Lord called you home. We love you, Jan.
I'm going to kind of echo what Debbie said a few minutes ago. When my wife and I first came to this church, it's like walking into an atmosphere where you don't know anybody and everything's strange. You don't know how you're supposed to act. You don't know how people are going to accept you or not accept you. And I think that's just inbred in all of us. But anyway, one day we came to the church, and I guess they were putting up a tree. And in the sanctuary, there was really nobody in there, but there was this gal in there, and she wasn't paying attention to anybody, but she was just singing as if, in loud voice, just singing away. And I'm looking around, and there's no choir. She's just singing to herself and the Lord. And I just let her sing, and we were watching her, and finally I went up and I said something off the wall, and we started an off-the-wall relationship. And what I mean by that is, every time Jan and I would see each other, we'd just be back and forth with each other. And she was that kind of person. You couldn't take your B game when you were around her. You had to take your A game. Because, she was going to lay it on you. And as much as she could be that way, if you needed to be serious, she could be serious. Dead serious. And she always came from that spot of calling a spade a spade. You always knew where you stood. It was so much of it was in love and happiness. I know what happened when we first heard that something was wrong. And I hadn't seen Jan for a while. And I asked my wife to please let me be the one that acknowledged to Jan that we were send a card or do something, right? And I couldn't do it for months because she was so special. I didn't know what to say. I wanted to say something prolific, and there was nothing prolific to say. So I just sent a little card and expressed what I felt, and lo and behold, I saw her a few days later, and she called me over, hugged me like we had seen each other just yesterday. In a touch, we were in touch. I mean, just holding hands, touching her knee. The love was there. And that's what Jan was all about. She was all love. And yet, embodied in that love was all this spirit. I mean, she was a live wire. And what a beautiful family. I'm telling you, you guys are so fortunate. She was just such a pleasure to know and love.
I had the pleasure of meeting Janice through her daughter Megan more than 10 years ago. And when I was driving down, I now live in Folsom, I was really thinking about the memories I had made with Megan throughout the years, and then especially the memories that I had of Jan. And I realized I didn't have that many that necessarily stood out because unlike the other mothers, when I would come over to the house, she didn't interrogate me. Usually when I would go over to another mother's house, it was like I had a colony of mothers. It was like, who are you dating? What are you doing? What is this? What is that? How is dance class? How is drama? And it would be a 25-minute conversation before I even got in the door to speak with my friend. And that was just par for the course, and I loved it, and I accepted it. Jan was the exception. It was, hi, how are you? What are you doing well in school? That was about it. And she cut to the chase. I remember one day, though, James and I actually came over very, very late. It was probably after like 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. She opened the door, and she goes, you're the one she always goes out with, and she always gets in trouble, but she always has fun. And I looked at her, and I went, don't get me wrong, I really thought that I was like, a pretty good kid, and I looked at her, and I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And she goes, that's the point. And I just blinked at her, and I said, okay. As a 16, 17-year-old would do. And I was like, can I go get her now? And she said, sure. She just let me walk in. And I will always remember that. I was like, okay, apparently I'm Megan's wild one, and I didn't even know. So I just will always have a very fond memory of her, of just accepting the people, that she was so accepting of the wild one into her daughter's life. So my name is Bertha Lind, and I was a co-worker of Jan's just for a few short years at the Research Compliance Office. And, some of us in the department, we don't get lunch very often. We sit at our desks, we eat at our desks, we live at our desks. But every now and then I'd be lucky enough to have the hour free. And even luckier sometimes if Jan was free at the same time, if I caught her before she left with Russell or before she asked somebody else. I'd get the opportunity to ask her to walk with me. And it wasn't really because of her choice of food. I think I said at our meeting with our group, Jan liked this one store, Molly Stone's, and, she loved to eat there, and I didn't understand why. She said, oh, look, they're twice-baked potatoes, they're delicious. And I said, Jan, twice-baked, reheated, think about it. From yesterday, why are you eating them? It doesn't sell them before. But I'd like to walk with her regardless of her food choices because it would give me the opportunity, maybe 10 or 15 minutes, to just tell her about my day and things that bugged me and my mother-in-law and all the things that just annoyed me. And she would sit very quietly or just walk very quietly and smile, and at the end the result was always the same, and I hope I do this right. She would turn to me and say, who cares? Who cares? It doesn't matter, right? So what? And it would make me feel better. It would kind of put into perspective what little, hairs were out of place in my life. And I did manage one time to get her to Olive Garden. What's so funny is the first thing she asked the waiter was White Zin. But I have to say, though, despite her snarkiness and her joke cracking, the reality is, for me, Jan was actually a very quiet, strong ministry. she was always the epitome of what a good person should be. And so, with all my complaining and all my whining, and every now and then I might even hear something back from her, she kept at least into perspective what we're here for. So I know her death was a huge loss to our department, and to me as well. And I didn't know her as long as many of you, but I understand and I feel your sympathy for Megan's family and for the loss of her mom. So anyway, thank you.
I'll be glad. Let's see. Where to start at this point? Your loss. It doesn't feel that way at all. I keep checking with the kids. Do you know what they're talking about? You feel it? We have our teary moments. But all things that everybody's talked about so far was Jan all the way up until she left. Because just every couple of days, she'd be asking, how's so-and-so? What's so-and-so doing? She never once complained about her situation or what was going on with her. And it's amazing. I feel the Lord let her do it her way. Because she wasn't in much pain. The doctors always ask, what level of pain? Just about the most she'd ever say is 2. Which is, totally amazing. She was coherent right up to Christmas Day. And she left the next morning. So I'm just totally in awe that through her whole life and her effect on our lives, the Lord seemed to be right alongside her. Whether she was calling the shots or he was calling the shots through her, it was totally awesome. And that's made it a whole lot easier. It made it easier for me. I just keep thinking, how lucky she was and is to be with Jesus. And the only conversation we ever had about her condition and what was happening in this regard was the day she called me up and said, it looks like I'm going to be seeing Jesus before you. And that was it. And I don't know if many of you caught the writing on the cake. And it says, what, gone to be with Jesus? See you, Jan. And that's the way she was. And we're involved in a new Bible study. And the name of the book we're studying is what about? What's your purpose?
What on earth am I here for?
What on earth am I here for? And in the first few chapters it talks, we're here for many reasons, and one of them is to prepare us for the next life. And Jan's walk, close walk with Jesus, because her entire life she did what a lot of us read about in the Bible and the Bible verses and all that. She lived her life that way. Yet, so preparing for what's next, she did in 5 years or less in terms of when she really got involved. And I've been involved with the Lord's walk since I can remember, 3-4 years old. And I'm now, 60, 68, so 65 years. So she's a fast learner. She did, in 5 years, being prepared for the next life. I figure I got to be around here at least for another 125 years to catch up. So is there anybody else that would like to like the mic before we wrap it up, or at least if you don't want to share, publicly, afterwards, come up front and talk to the camera and share. Because we do really want to share her life with her friends and posterity. It's going to go on the web and it'll be there for as long as the web there is, I guess. And I want to thank all of you who did share. Really, really appreciate it. It meant so much to us. It means so much to us. And the fact that we've got it recorded too, I'm sure we're going to be playing this probably every birthday. So this is a real opportunity. Thank you for coming. Does anybody else want the mic?
Thank you, John, for making me laugh. It's such a joy to be around. I can't help but cry when I knew you went to Jesus. But I am happy because I know you got ahead of us. And I know you're preparing a corner for the First Baptist Church Choir. And when we get there, we're going to have a song fest. We're going to sing all for Jesus. Thank you, my dear friend. And I always remember the last time I saw you, that you were still healthy, was at Megan's pampered chef party. And you asked me to come, and you said to me, you don't need to buy anything, Rose, just come. Okay. But you know what happened? I ended up buying something. Anyway, I love you, my dear friend. I'll see you when my time comes. Glorious day. We both love the same song. Thank you.